So, welcome to episode 3 of the Kyero Pro Podcast. My name is Martin Dell. I'm a co-founder of Kyero.com, and I'm joined by two handsome-looking men in the studio today. Eugenio, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me here. I'm super excited. So I'm Eugenio. I'm commercial director here at Kyero. I think I built quite a journey here. I've been sales executive, sales manager, now commercial director. So I think that it'll be interesting to put some boots on the ground experience and some strategic point of view to this conversation. Let's see how it goes.
Looking forward to putting you under the spotlight, Eugenio. And Alfredo,
Good to see you.
good to see you again.
My name is Alfredo Bloy Dawson. I'm a marketing consultant. I work with real estate agencies and people in the real estate space. I have done since 2012. And that's me.
Cool. Thank you. Welcome both. In this episode, we're talking about portals. Clearly, as an owner of Kyero, I've got some thoughts about that. Eugenio's got some experience about it, and Alfredo's seen it from the agent point of view. As I mentioned, this is the third in the series of podcasts. In episode 1, we talked about the whole foreign buyer market and why it's important, particularly for agents on the coast of Spain or the islands. Episode 2, we talked about where do agents get leads from, the different kind of leads, how to work them. This one, we're talking about portals as a lead source. And next week, we'll be joined by a guest from a SEO consultancy in London, people we worked with in the past. So to find out all about SEO from the horse's mouth. Episode 5, we're talking about Google Ads, and episode 6, we're wrapping it all up to talk about lead follow-up and how to make the most of those leads and build a sales pipeline. So to kick us off, if I can put you on the spot, Eugenio, what do agents most misunderstand about property portals from your point of view?
Okay, yeah, that's a really good question to use as an icebreaker. But I would say there's not always, but most frequently, a misinterpretations about what portals are supposed to do. So portals are supposed to push visibility, and if portfolio is good enough, good location, good price point, good characteristics, key features, descriptions, etc., even we are supposed to provide leads. But the sales process, the follow-up process, and the sales itself, it's all about the agency. So I think that what's usually misunderstood or misinterpreted is what portals are supposed to do. Agencies are supposing that we should provide them with really hot leads that are just, people that have money on the hand and are really looking forward to buy something. And that's not the reality of the market. And even more for international property portals. From my point of view, international buyers are sort of exploring alternatives, exploring areas, exploring budgets, understanding what their money can buy them in specific areas. So there's usually this connection between what we do or what we're supposed to do and the agent's expectations. That's what I would say.
Yeah, thank you. So do you think that's a question of the stage in the funnel that the buyers are? Is there a misunderstanding of where those buyers are in the funnel at the point that we hand them over?
100%. Yeah. And moreover, I think that there is a misconception also between a bad lead and a warm lead. A lead that's not yet ready to buy is not necessarily a bad lead. It's still a lead that's looking forward to get some information, to nurture its own buying process, but it might be yet not a person or a lead that's eager to buy. So I think that that's also part of the disconnection, Martin, what you just said. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Thank you. How about you, Alfredo, in your kind of poacher turned gamekeeper twilight zone? What do you see from an agent's point of view?
I think the most common thing is they don't really understand what's going on. They don't understand it's a marketplace. They expect some sort of magic bullet. Sometimes that's caused by overzealous salespeople, to be honest, But I think they don't understand the numbers like they should in terms of what they should expect. I think the expectations isn't matched with reality. And I think the starting point, the most common thing, is understanding how much the performance is on them, and how little is actually on the portal. If an agent picks a portal that has traffic from the places that they want to have traffic from, people that might want to buy what they have, then the rest is on them. And I think there is a disconnect between that. I think they feel that if you've got poor inventory, badly priced poor inventory and low inventory, that a portal will just pull out a magic bunny out the hat and get those things sold in 2 weeks. And maybe I'm being a little bit flippant, but I think there's a huge amount of misunderstanding with agencies, especially newer agencies. More established ones, they understand the sales cycles along. It's a second home market, and there's a whole bunch of factors that come into it, and they know the numbers a little bit better. But particularly new agencies, they really don't know what they should be expecting. And I'm not surprised, because apart from podcasts like this, nobody's telling them.
It's great that we're doing the public service thing here then. I think from my point of view, I definitely agree with both of you. I had a conversation with a new agency actually in Portugal a couple of months ago, and they were talking to me about they didn't really understand what was going on. They spent a whole bunch of money on Facebook last month, but they hadn't sold anything yet, and they didn't understand what was happening. And I think it's that bit like you said, Alfredo, there's this sort of suspicion that there's some magic that they're missing, and a fundamental misunderstanding of the length of the sales cycle and the complexity of the sales cycle. And as we'll talk about, I'm sure, that's also mixed up with the difference between, does the portal have any traffic? Are they generating leads at all? Because if that's not happening, then there's no way for the sales lead to come through and fill the funnel.
I think most agents find it very, very difficult to establish whether a new portal's pitch is true. It's the most common thing I get from agents. The most common thing is I get a forwarded proposal from a portal by an agent to me, typically with the line, "What do you think?" As in, basically, they don't even know what they think. They're kind of going, "I don't even know where to grab this from." Sometimes these proposals are so long and so complicated that it sounds amazing, but really the agent's like, "So what does that mean?" They don't understand the pricing. They don't understand what the point is. And I get that, because from a sales perspective, it's difficult. And from an agent perspective, it's difficult. And I think that very first instance, if there was a crossroads where they go wrong, is picking the portal that has not got the Scooby-Doo chance of working for them. I mean, that's just the first stage of the process. The first stage is, could this portal work for you? Because I could answer that question for a lot of people, and a lot of the time the answer is no.
So that's a really good point. Let's jump right into that, because I think that's the summary of this whole episode, isn't it? So when you get that proposal from an agent looking at a new portal or maybe an existing portal, what's the process that you go through to sanity check whether it's got any hope of generating leads for them?
It's not rocket science. When you think about it, if a agent's own website, and this has happened to me more times than I care to say, has 25, 35,000 visits a month, and someone's trying to ask them for money to advertise on essentially a portal's a website. Let's call it what it is, right? That has less traffic than the agent. It's a bad start. So I'm just looking for a basic indicator of traffic, and I'm also looking for a basic indicator of where that traffic is coming from. That's like the second stage. So, okay, tick one, it's got some traffic. It might be 1 million, it might be 500,000, it might be, but anything under 500,000 visits, it's kind of niche, depending on what area it's covering, how many agents are dealing with. And then the next stage of the filtering process is, where's that traffic coming from? And again, there are sites like SimilarWeb. They're not super accurate from my experience, but it gives you a pretty good indication. And I've seen it. I've seen portals that are getting a third of the traffic from Ethiopia. You, Eugenio, from your side, your team must find it difficult when you're compared to other portals where they're not a competitor, really, and without wanting to say bad things about the competition. How does that work for you guys?
Yeah, no, I think that's interesting. I agree with what you just said, Alfredo. But I would also add something that's maybe more simple, because if you're looking into stats, you might also want to look at conversion rate. In terms of, maybe a website has less traffic but a higher conversion rate, so the amount of leads generated, might be equal or even higher than a competitor. So I would basically ask, do you know that portal? I mean, an international buyer, one of the first things he wants is to really feel trust in the purchase process. Okay. So one of the first things that I believe the buyer is going to be doing is he's going to be getting information from trusted sources. For you to be a trusted source, you need to be well known, you need to have track record, you need to have history, and you need to have brand awareness. So if a new portal comes out of the blue and says, hey, listen, I have 70,000 leads that are coming from X, Y, or Z, that's great, even when looking it through a SimilarWeb. That's great. But if buyers don't really trust the portal, then there's also, once again, a disconnection between the numbers and the boots on the ground reality, what I call boots on the ground reality. So one of the main questions that I would ask is that a well-known portal? I remember when I was a sales executive, one of my main sales pitches, which was real. I still believe in that nowadays. It was, yeah, it's great that you're advertising with the Alista. It's great that you're advertising with X, Y, or Z. But international buyers most definitely are going to be visiting Kyero. At some point of the buying process, they are going to be typing Kyero.com. They're going to be using filters, and they're going to be trying to look for their next purchase. So are you going to be advertising with us or not? Because it's usually a combination of portals that provide you with the best results. It's not one portal, okay? And it's not the new upcoming portal that you need to find out that's going to be a deal breaker for you. It's just consistency. So is it a well-known portal? Does it have traffic? Do international buyers trust it? Then that's most probably one of the main options.
Would it be fair to say, as a generalization, just because I'm trying to make this as useful as we can for agents, if the portal is new, that's a red flag?
I agree. Not always, but I agree. Yeah.
As you say, Alfredo, a portal is a website. It's just probably a better funded, slightly had more of a tech investment than an agent's website. I'm generalizing, but we still, as a portal, we still have the same challenges as an agent, just at a larger scale. We still have to get traffic. We still have to generate leads. So there's no secret sauce there. It costs money or time or both generally, and a track record is one of the easiest ways of getting traffic.
Agents don't have any sense of what's involved behind the scenes on a portal. For all they know, it's you and Eugenio, and that's the end of that. Now, I know, because in most agencies, they don't have an in-house web development team. They'll hire somebody to build their website, and maybe they have an SEO consultancy firm doing a bit of ongoing for them, but that's about it. And sometimes when I see a new portal come into the mix, it is like two dudes. And sometimes it's a huge team of people. And now the teams of people vary depending on the ebbs and flows of the market and stuff like that. But what kind of effort goes behind the scenes for a portal, just so that agents can understand that there's a little bit more to it than buying a cool domain and sticking luxury in the title?
Well, as you can tell from my haircut, it's been quite the journey. So when Kyero started, to be fair, 25 years ago almost, it was 5 dudes. So sales, admin, engineering, and the engineering team grew. The most expensive part of running a property portal is the engineering team. And it is a team. You might start with a guy that can do all of the technical stuff, but pretty soon he'll go, actually, no, I'm good at back end, or I'm good at data, or I'm good at front end. And before you know it, you've got a team of at least 3 or 4 engineering people. They're very hard to find good ones. Once you've found a good one, very hard to keep them, because they like novelty and they like a new challenge, of course. And the technical the market for technical people comes and goes. It ebbs and flows a bit, but I don't think we've had any member of an engineering team being paid less every year. So it's the most expensive part of the business. And then, of course, you grow the engineering team. That grows your HR and admin team. And pretty soon, before you know it, at its peak, Kyero had close to 50 people to run a property portal. COVID sort of made us trim back a bit, but it's it's a proper enterprise. And I think what agents don't understand is a website is part of their business. They need to have it, but it's only part of what they do. The website is all of a portal's business, and we're focused around that. And it's kind of a bit of a mental challenge in that we're a marketing business, but the first thing we have to be good at is marketing our own product. So we're marketing on behalf of the agents, we're representing the buyers to the agents, and we're marketing our own business. So it's one of the weird sort of intricacies of running a marketplace.
How many agents do you have paying Kyero at any one time? What do you say as an average over the last few years?
Yeah, it comes and goes. COVID was clearly a low point for us, and so was 2008. But it varies between 1,200 and 1,500, I think. I'm sure we'll talk about this later on. We introduced a freemium model around about COVID, and that boosted our agent numbers up to 7,000, I think. And that was a mixed blessing in terms of agent numbers, customer service, listing quality, which we can get into. But yeah, I would say anywhere between 1,200 and 1,500 is our sweet spot.
The reason I asked this is something that I think it might be helpful for agents to get their head around a little bit, the difference between a proper property portal and someone who has a website. Is imagine your own website generated that many leads that you could feed more than 1,000 agencies with those leads and get them to give you money. That's a property portal. If you don't have that, you got a website.
Good call.
I don't think people understand the scale of this.
That's a good statement.
That you're doing so well, you're basically going, who wants
No.
some? Right? That's the big difference.
Yeah.
Yeah, and actually that's one of our challenges is to try and engineer a fair distribution of leads. So one challenge is getting traffic. The next challenge is converting the traffic to leads. And the third challenge is distributing those leads to agents who are all paying us. We can't give all of the leads to one agent just because for whatever reason their portfolio happens to be right or they happen to be paying us the most. Part of our Prime AI product is figuring out lead allocation to the best lead and the best property to match the buyer. And that's not something an agent sees, but we've probably spent a good third of our engineering money over the decades in allocation algorithms and ranking algorithms. It's all of the secret sauce that no portal is going to tell you how it works, but it has to be there to stop buyers and agents gaming the system. So we're trying to protect the marketplace from opportunistic sort of activity.
What would you say are the most common complaints that your team hears over the years about portals? Because this links, I think, to this distribution of the leads and lead quality and stuff like that you mentioned.
Yeah, I think there's always two major claims, and the three of us will agree on this. It's either quantity or quality. If an agent gets quality leads, then the claim is gonna be is not enough. It's not enough quantity. If an agent gets enough quantity, then the claim will be not good quality. So as usual, it's a fine balance between agents' expectations and what we are able to provide, but not only able to provide, but what we should be providing. Many times we've been overperforming, throughout the years because of seasonality, because of X, Y, or Z. But the reality is that you will always have these conversations with agents, not with all of the agents. Okay, I don't wanna use this broad concept about agents, but many agencies are still gonna be claiming it's not enough, or it's enough, but I don't have enough quality. And I think that's also part of our job. Going back to your previous question, Alfredo, I think this is part of our role. We need to educate agents, to show them where the market is going, because many times we are developing a roadmap that consists on market trends or on industry trends, on technology trends, and maybe not on the immediate necessity that an agent has. So we need to educate them on, I know you don't see this right now. I know this might not be adding value to you right now, but in the long run, this is going to be something that you're going to be profiting from. So I guess that managing those expectations that agents usually have, it's really tricky. So yeah.
Is that there is another thing that agents wonder, which you guys can answer. Good lead, bad lead, right? Whatever. But that the lead, they suspect that portals give them names and numbers of made up people that have not inquired, that have zero interest in the property, and that they've just said, "Look, we need to give you some leads," and they've sent them Bob Smith 12345 Mickey Mouse at gmail.com. Does that happen in your experience?
No. Well, to validate the question, yes, we've heard that consistently over the last 20 odd years. And it's a difficult one. I mean, categorically, no, we don't do that. But it's a difficult one to refute. It's like trying to disprove a negative. I think agents suspect that the lead isn't real because they don't get back to them. Somebody says, send me some more photos of this property. Agent sends the photos and they don't hear anything. And they assume it's because that's gone into an email black hole. And I think it's a misunderstanding of what the buyer is actually asking for. Yes, they've asked for some photos. Yes, they've reached out and said, hey, I may be in the market, but they may not be ready to have a conversation yet. And I think it's one of the reasons agents ask for phone numbers, because they can call a number and say, are you a real person? Is the person that's on the lead, is that the same person that answers the phone? But the truth is, when we give buyers the option not to put their phone number, the vast majority choose that because they don't want a phone call yet. And the number of people that are ready to transact is reflected in the conversion rate from lead to sale. We know it's on average around about 1%. So maybe 1 in 100 people, 5 in 100 people want a phone call from an agent in that exact moment. The rest don't. And it's not because we're trying to hide them or shield them. We're actually trying to provide a service of a marketplace, which is connecting buyers and sellers. And if the buyer doesn't want to be contacted by a particular method at that moment in time, we've actually tested this and it's counterproductive to force them to put a phone number in. And if we force them to, they put a made up phone number in because they don't want to be contacted. For myself, I know when I want a sales call and I know when I don't. And most of the time I don't want a sales call and I put a made up phone number in an inquiry form if someone makes me put a phone number in.
Yeah. And let me tell you something, Alfredo, adding on what Martin just said. We receive the same kind of complaint from the buyer side. So we receive complaints about agents not getting back to them, about fake listings, about listings that are no longer available on the market. So that's the tricky spot that we as a portal get to be in. We get the claim from the agent and we get the claim from the buyer. So yeah, I think that what Martin just said is completely true. Agents usually feel that we are shielding buyers or we're hiding buyers away from them. But the reality is that we're protecting business. So a business that's fair for both agents and buyers.
The difference between an experienced agent and an inexperienced agent in this regard is that the inexperienced agent will think there's foul play at hand here, in that somehow they're being scammed or something. And the experienced agent will just purely assess it on a slightly more macro basis. So we've had 100 leads. How are they looking? What's in the pipeline? Here's another question to ask both of you. If the portal is an established portal that is representative of the marketplace, why is it that sometimes portals perform well for an agency and then they stop performing and then they perform again? What's all that about? Surely they're either a good portal or not a good portal.
If I could have dialed in consistent performance every month for every agent over the last 20 years, that would be a completely different business. I think that from the macro point of view, there's a couple of things going on that are beyond our control. So first of all, business is seasonal. To give you two examples, Boxing Day in the UK is when people are sick of their families, sick of having spent Christmas with their families. And it's a known thing that property portals get their largest traffic day on Boxing Day in the UK. Compare that to a sunny bank holiday Friday in the UK, let's say maybe April, maybe Easter, maybe the beginning of summer, and there's zero traffic because people are out. They're not sitting at their laptops. So there's this seasonal trend, and there's a macro seasonal trend as well that is beyond us. And the other challenge is the macroeconomics. So Brexit clearly affected the number of UK buyers, or the intent of UK buyers. If Sweden's having a bad economic year, because this is a discretionary spend, the number of Swedish buyers just disappears. So there's those two things that are completely beyond us, and we work around it. So, for example, we've just launched Kyero.com in Polish because of the troubles in Ukraine. There's been a rise in Polish buyers, so we can take advantage of that as a macro trend. But that's not an overnight thing. That's us leveraging decades of technology investment to be able to bring a Polish language version of Kyero to market. Eugenio, I know you'll have more to say about this.
Yeah, I think that what you just said is basically it. Plus, sometimes an agent performs because at any given point in time, he has a great portfolio, good amount of listings, great descriptions, great price point. And maybe, 3 months later, that portfolio is not there anymore. So same agency, same location, same area of influence, different portfolio. That happens, and that happens a lot. And I think, and I believe, and I know that agencies know this, because it's not usually when we stop performing for them, other portals or other lead sources also stop performing for them. So the fact that they're coming to us looking for an explanation of why performance has dropped, I don't feel it's something that they're looking forward to get from us specifically as Kyero Property Portal. It's just an explanation that will add up to their overall picture, business picture. You know what I mean? So I would say portfolio, the 2 points that Martin said, plus portfolio, 100%.
Let's everything we say, I think, which is just make the assumption that we're talking about an established portal with traffic, so we don't have to keep on going back to new portals and all that stuff. So, if you have one listing, just one, and it's well priced in a sought after area and nobody else has it, you will get a mountain of leads for almost any of these portals that are established portals, and you will sell that property probably before you finish adding the pictures to the damn listing. That's the market. The market decides. What we're talking about here are the nuances that if you have a portfolio that is stuff that is maybe hasn't flown off the shelves, that maybe is slightly overpriced, maybe it needs a bit of interior decoration or staging, then the market decides. So what we had is post-COVID, you had a huge amount of, during COVID, a huge amount of pent-up demand. The interest in a second home grew. We know that. That's a macro trend. And as the doors opened, so to speak, the airports allowed people to travel, the Spanish real estate market had record 1, 2, 3, 4 years in a row. Agents were just, you have to look at social and see they're like, this is the best year we've ever had. No, this is the best year we've ever had. So there's been a shopping spree in this, in the real estate market. The questions that we've been asking agents in our agent spotlights over the last 3 years is like, what's your biggest challenge? All of them say inventory. So this is where I'm trying to say there's a very big disconnect between the performance of portals and one's own inventory being a little bit low, and maybe not the stuff that everybody wants, maybe slightly overpriced. So portals are going to perform worse generally, which is exactly what Eugenio is saying. I think we have to remember that. So my question here for you guys is, if I have an inventory of listings that are okay, maybe just not the sort of stuff that flies off the shelves, what kind of portal do to help me sell that? Or is it just game over and I should just pack up my bags and go home?
Yeah, I was, while you were speaking, I think another macro trend in Spain that's relevant here is that you may have the listings, but you may not have exclusivity of the listing. So it's entirely possible for your portfolio as an agent to be okay, but if you're not marketing that listing as well as you could, another agent can market your listing better than you and get the lead. So then it comes down to the attention an agent pays to the quality of their listing. I think for us on Kyero, because we're an international marketplace, languages and descriptions are a really key part of how we land traffic. So the original listing in whatever language that's in has to be complete. It has to be professional. We take those listings and auto-translate them. And auto-translation's gotten a lot better in recent years, thanks to AI. But it takes us a few days to get the original listing, figure out the kind of the features of the listing, and then get them auto-translated. And one of the things that agents do that, if I could stop today, would be better for everyone is they're playing with a certain number of listings on a portal, so they'll regularly delete listings and reapply them. And so, to kind of get a churn of listings to see which ones are better. Some agents do that weekly, and what they end up doing is actually diluting the performance of the entire portfolio, because there's never a moment in time where we've taken the listing, been able to process it, primp it up to its best optimal, and then have that there for long enough to attract a buyer. So I got two things, two bits of practical advice. Don't cycle listings. It doesn't work. And pay attention to the listing quality, and that's photos and description. How about you, Eugenio? You're more frontline than me.
Yeah, no, I agree with what you just said, Martin. And I feel that if you're an agent with a come see, come sa portfolio, one of the main things I would do is I would keep my advertising budget, 100%. Consistency is key. Consistency on time is key. And number two, I would get better at follow-up. Like, just to give an example, and I asked Nick, for those who don't know, Nick is our head of engineering at Kyero. He's been with us, but with you, Martin, for how many years now?
I think it's 18 or 19.
You see, engineers don't rotate. so that's Nick. I asked him before this episode a few stats that I had in my mind, but I wanted fresh numbers. So when I'm speaking about an agent with come sa portfolio that needs consistency and that needs to improve a follow-up process, in Kyero, roughly 50% of agents include WhatsApp numbers on their listings. Okay. Not only that, but 50% of agents include telephone numbers on their listings. So instead of leveraging three communication channels, inquiry forms, WhatsApp, and telephone numbers, 50% of agents are only leveraging inquiry forms, okay, and are living outside of the flow, WhatsApp inquiries and telephone inquiries. So that's how that's something that they could do to get better at sales process. Another thing, the agents that do include WhatsApp as a communication channel available on their listings, when we do double click on them, response rate for those leads are roughly sitting at 55%, between 50 and 55%. Okay, so we're speaking 1 in 2 agents adds WhatsApp. From those agents, 50% of inquiries that go through WhatsApp get unresponded. More information. Depending on the time of the day at which that inquiry through WhatsApp comes through the agent system, it might take up to 26 hours for an agent to get back to that lead. So again, to me, if I'm an agent that has not a really strong portfolio, I would say keep consistent with your advertising budget, keep your listings online, and improve your follow-up process. Try to provide as many communication channels as possible for buyers to connect with you, and try to get really, 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 really good at following up with them. Not only because it's what's necessary for your business, but because that, with these stats in mind, is a competitive advantage that you might have over your competitors. If you know that your competitors are taking 26 hours to get back to a WhatsApp lead, and you do that in 10 minutes, that's a competitive advantage to you as an agency. If you know that only 50% of agencies are providing WhatsApp as a communication channel to buyers, then that makes you part of the 50% that could be performing better. So consistency and improving following up process.
So, question for you, Alfredo. You see this from the agent's side. What's going on when an agent gets a lead but either doesn't respond or responds late?
Well, the process tends to be that the majority of agencies don't have telemarketing teams. So the lead comes in, I don't know, say Saturday night, right? When people are off and maybe they've seen a TV program or something. There's nobody in on Sunday. And then everybody's back in the office on Monday. So then the sales director will assign the lead to an agent. Let's say, call him John. But John is doing viewings today. He's out all day doing viewings with an agent. So he's going to deal with his emails when he gets back tomorrow night. Or tonight, sorry. So the person that asked something on Saturday, when they were highly motivated, may get an email on Monday evening. And then the next morning, John's in the office and he goes, part of my follow-up protocol that the company has sort of suggested that I follow is make a phone call. So he's going to call this lead on Tuesday at 10:30 after his coffee. And that lead's at work and gets a number from an unknown number in Spain. Doesn't answer, as I wouldn't. And then something happens. Either the lead follow-up is very slick and they just know there's a number of attempts at omni-channel approach through the follow-up, or it gets just like, this lead's no good, and move on. Normally this happens more so when it's when the person doing the follow-up isn't their money. They're not paid for the lead, so to speak. So they're just after the new, shiny penny that responds. But most of the time, that sort of time scale is pretty common. And I've done a lot of research on this sort of stuff. And we got the last episode, we're going to go into follow-up. But if you want to double your sales, improve your follow-up first, because that's relatively free. And it's not that easy, but it's not that complicated either. I think you kind of have to take some common sense into that. This is a discretionary purchase. It's a holiday home most of the time, maybe a relocation, but it's a long-term thing. They're not in a rush. They're not buying number 123 Main Street down the road and it's just become available and they're going to bite your hand off to see it. This is a long game. And if they go on a portal, chances are that they are going to be inquiring on more than one property quite often. Sometimes the same property by multiple agencies, so which is even worse, right? And you instinctively know the person that's going to get back to them swiftly, politely, omni-channel is going to be talking to them, and the other person's going to be saying, John's going to be saying these leads are no good. So that's what I've witnessed over and over and over again in the marketplace here. The expectation of, a lot of the time there's a huge disconnect between what John the agent thinks this lead is with what it really is. They don't really know where it came from. They just have like an email. You have the details, name, number, email address, inquired about, listing R12345. They're basically going, not going to help you. And they've not really got a lot of information to say, okay, well, this is what they saw. Again, I don't want to go into lead follow-up now, but what I would say is the most common thing is that they will essentially, 99% of follow-ups I've seen over the last decade and a half, it's what the person that was doing the inquiring saw on the portal, sent back to them. So it's like a PDF with the listing information and the 15 photographs or whatever it had, and says, here you go, let me know if you need anything else. And it doesn't move the conversation forward. They're not really asking themselves, well, what is it they're likely to need? I won't go into more of that, but that's most common, to answer your question. That's the common scenario. And that comes down to training.
I mean, we definitely had feedback from agents over the years saying, this person's asked for more photos, but I've already put all of the photos on the listing, so I've got nothing to say to them. They're not serious because of that. And I think it's a fundamental disconnect between the buyer kind of reaching out. Yeah, they're saying, I want more photos or I want more information. But actually the question they're asking underneath it is, can I trust you to guide me through this process? But they're not saying that. And the person receiving the lead isn't intuiting that. And so there's a disconnect. Yeah, interesting. Well, I wanted to come back to a couple of things you said earlier, Alfredo. You mentioned SimilarWeb as a way of comparing websites and how much traffic they've got. And I wanted to make the point that while the numbers in SimilarWeb may not be factual in that they make an estimate. It's a reasonable way of comparing. So the comparison is probably valid rather than the actual number. Would you agree with that?
100%. And to be honest with you, from my experience, most agents wouldn't know the difference between 50 million visits and 5 million visits if we hit them on the head. And why would they? They just know it's a lot. So, so it doesn't really matter. What you are looking at is, okay, this portal A and portal B, this one I've heard of. It's got brand equity, like Eugenio was saying. And it says here, 1 million, 10 million, something. It sounds a lot. And this one here, I've never heard of. It says 55 people. Or has not enough data. And there's your answer. And it doesn't mean you shouldn't. They might have something going on that is not apparent on those stats, but it allows you to go back to them and say, look, how much traffic do you guys actually have? Where is it from? Why should I advertise with you? And I would say never advertise on the promise of future traffic. Certainly that's why most portals, when they start off, they got to do free listings, because it's a chicken and egg situation, isn't it? I mean, you tell me, Martin, there's a little seesaw that happens for portals that not many people are aware of, which is you got to have the listings for it to be a viable marketplace for buyers to find stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But you can't really get money of people until you have those buyers. But to get those buyers, you got to have the listing. And then so you sort of start off free. A new portal would start off generally offering 3 months free in the hope to get that, and then try and get some money off them later. What's your experience with that?
Yeah, well, our most recent experience was us introducing a free tier during COVID for that very reason. The job of a portal is to aggregate agents and listings to buyers and to aggregate buyers to agents. And we were concerned that we would lose critical mass of agents and listings during COVID because the number of people pulling their advertising spend for understandable reasons. As it happens, I think we kept 2/3 of our paying agents and revenue during that period. But it was something we wanted to guard against, so we introduced a free tier with the idea of maintaining listing volume and agent volume so that we would carry on attracting buyers even though they couldn't yet travel. And that worked. The other aspect of trying to maintain that sort of critical mass is that getting ranked in Google in 2020 was largely dependent on content quantity and quality. That actually changed quite soon after COVID. I don't know why, but Google did something, and that's no longer true. So it's no longer true that you need listing content and quality alone to rank on Google. It's not enough. You actually need some other stuff that many portals are still trying to figure out. But yeah. So it's a double-edged thing.
Yeah, because I hadn't even thought of the SEO element. I'm talking just purely from a consumer point of view, as in, I want to buy a house in Spain. This portal hasn't got much in it. I'm not coming back.
Yeah, totally.
But even to get to the point where I'm looking at the portal to see it's got nothing in it, it has to rank on Google. So it's a double-edged. It's like a double. Wow. Okay, I hadn't thought of it that way.
Yeah, it's chicken and egg squared. And I think that's one of the reasons that most agent websites don't rank on Google. And even if they do, they don't keep traffic because they don't have enough property portfolio to attract a buyer and keep a buyer. So that's the fundamental promise of a portal. And of course, that's changing with AI, which I know we're going to get onto. But yeah, basically, a buyer wants us to aggregate agents and listings. An agent wants us to aggregate buyers. That's the fundamental promise.
I have a question for you both. Now that you just said what you just said, Martin, so you triggered this question, in fact. If you were an agency, if you were an agent with its own agency, would you rather put budget into building and developing and positioning your own website, or would you rather put budget into portals and focus on your own core business?
My short answer is yes. Yes and. Yeah, it's yes and. It's not an either or. I don't know, Alfredo, you've got some numbers. You did a poll about the number of portals and agents advertise on, I think. But stepping back from that, before I prompt you for the numbers, I think an agent needs to think about marketing as spread betting. Like, do you go to the casino and go, I'm putting it all on red? Or do you go, I'll play a little bit of blackjack, I'll do some roulette? No, you're going to make educated bets, but it is spread betting from my point of view. That's the sensible thing to do. Anyway, Alfredo, I don't want to steal your thunder.
I did a little mini survey on LinkedIn. That was 11 months ago, and I asked agents, how many portals do you advertise in typically at any one time? And 15%, 1/5 of agents advertise on just one portal, and 68% advertise on 3 or more. And the relevance of that is exactly what you just said, is the portal performance fluctuates. An agent, obviously the agent's portfolio fluctuates, but the performance of portals themselves fluctuate. They have good times, they have bad times. And part of that fluctuation is to do with a number of things, how they're doing organically, how they're getting, the traffic they're getting, and it goes up and it goes down, and that's just life, as agents' websites do. But the second element is sometimes successful portals are victims of their own success, meaning if I have 10,000 leads to give out to 1,000 agents, that's 10 leads each a week, say. If I suddenly do such a great job and they're so happy with those 10 leads that I get another 1,000 agents, now I've got 5 leads to give out. And then, so you have this little seesaw element that happens with successful portals that doesn't really get talked about. And it's not like anybody, you're not going to say, no, don't give us your money, but it is what happens. So then what happens is a few start underperforming, they go and try somewhere else. It's like musical chairs. And then the remaining get more of those 10,000 leads. Maybe the portal starts performing better and it's only 20,000 leads and they're having a purple patch. And this is the reality of what's going on. And I think agents kind of like to have things simple and go, this is working, this isn't. But there's a really good reason why agencies that have been here for 30 years in operation are very, very clued up about things. They do a round robin around the portals, the established portals. So they'll, Lisa's doing well now, let's go there. Oh, Kiero's doing well now, let's go there. And you're picking 3 or 4 portals on average. And my argument would be there aren't that many established portals to pick from. So this goes back to your and element. It's not either Lista and Kyero. Sorry, it's not either Lista or Kyero. It's either Lista and Kyero and. So really, I think the mistake that agents do is that it's a psychological thing, which I understand, is they are maybe 2 freebie portals, alfredodeluxe.com and Eugenio Properties for You, and Kyero and Idealista, and they think they're on 4 portals, but they're not. They're on 2, and they expect the results of 4. So there is this round robin thing that happens. I don't know if I'm making any sense here.
Yeah. It's reminding me of the whole difference between sort of acting investing and index fund investing. I'm pretty lazy, so I'd steer towards index fund investing because I don't want to pick stocks. And even if I got it right 1 month and I made a load of money, the chances of me getting it right consistently for every month in the future are so slim that it's just not going to work out for me long term. So I think this idea of spreading money out between credible options, and last week we spoke about, it's not just portals, it's paid advertising as well, it's my own website, it's a bit of SEO. I think there's a golden path for allocating 80% of a marketing budget, and you might have a little flutter on the side for something esoteric and weird and wonderful, but the main chunk of an advertising budget should be on the stuff that's worked in the past and is likely to keep on working.
Yeah, it's all about building acquisition channels, isn't it? So that's where, you should be building acquisition channels so that you can later on build on top of that your sales process, which takes us to the first part of the conversation we had today. So it's about, how do I build consistent acquisition channels through property portals, through paid advertising, through SEO, through my own website, etc., so that I can later on build on top of that my own sales process. And you need to be consistent on both sides. I think agents need to be consistent on both sides, because efficiency comes after consistency. So you can't improve consistently something, any acquisition channel, property portals, paid media, SEO, if you're not consistent on time. So if once you understood what works with property portals, you jump off property portals and you go straight away to paid advertising on Google, then that, you're not leveraging the investment that you already did. It's basically a sunk cost, and you'll have to start all over again 12 months later. So I mean, I think it's once again all about consistency, and building acquisition channels.
What are your thoughts on the topics of duplicate listings, quality of listings, as in, are they accurate? Are they made up? Is it just a lead magnet to generate more leads? And the trustworthiness of an agent. Who is it a problem? How do you fix it? Who's in charge of fixing it? Agents would think it's a portal's job to do all that. What can you say about that?
Well, and I think that it comes back to the central value and promise of a portal. Buyers want to be able to trust a platform. They want to, they're already nervous about making a purchase of this size, and they feel that there's an asymmetry of data, and particularly true in Spain, because historically the data that's available in Spain about the property market is vastly inferior to what they're used to in country, say from the UK or from America. They're used to knowing exactly what a property got sold for, when, what the price history is, not aggregated to a town or a postcode, that property. And you can't get that in Spain. So they already feel like they're at a disadvantage. And that's why they're looking for a trusted intermediary to help them know when they're having a trusted conversation with an agent, or whether they're being led down the garden path. So there's that to start with. For more than a decade now, we've had this concept in Kyero of becoming that platform, and it's really difficult to do. It's really difficult to do because we don't get to see the transaction. We don't get to see the sale that's closed. So we don't know what it got sold for. We don't know who sold it. We don't know who bought it. So there's that.
What about the duplicate listings? Why can't Kyero stroke any portal just go, okay, you're just going to have one?
The challenge for us as a portal is it's almost impossible to reliably detect a duplicate listing, for the reason that an agent might take a photo and crop out another agent's logo, or they might choose a bit of a photo and feature that. So we can't do exact duplicates on photos. An agent might take a description and reprocess it to create a new description. So we can't do exact duplicates. And because of the challenge of no exclusivity of listings, or often no exclusivity on listings, agents don't give us the unique ID of the listing for us to compare with another listing. So the best we can do is take an educated guess of duplicate listings. And even if we knew that, what do? Do we say that the agent that first listed on Kyero is the listing agent? That may not be true. I know examples where the listing agent, the one that originally got the listing, is late to market with that listing. They've shared it via their internal network, and one of their partners lists on Kyero first. So I'm not saying those things are insurmountable, but historically those have been the challenges that we've faced with deduping listings.
I think it's up to us to control that as a portal, not as Martin, Eugenio, whoever it is, but us as portals. Agents need to make the most out of their possibilities. Sometimes they share listings. Sometimes they do duplicates within their portfolios. They want to make money. I don't blame them. That's great. We as a portal, we need to implement the technology, which we certainly do. It's just that it's not that easy as you might think. So we need to try and remove as many duplicates as possible, the duplicates that do not add value to the end user, because it's all about adding value to the end user. So as Martin said, many duplicates do add value to the end users. So the technology should be in place for us to be able to detect, this is a duplicate that adds value to the end user. This is a duplicate that's, nonsense. So whenever you make those decisions, agents usually feel that you're harming their positioning, their performance, their visibility, etc., etc., etc. But in the long run, you're really benefiting them, because you're making a marketplace is all about trust. So if you provide a good user experience for international buyers, and you provide them with a trustful source of information, trustful source of listings, then they come over and over and over again in order to find their home abroad. So I believe it's up to us to control those duplicates, to control those translations, to control that the listings that are published are actually listings that are within their current portfolio and have not been sold out 2 months ago. And yeah, it's usually a tricky conversation that goes on with agents whenever speaking about, hey, listen, we've noticed this or that within your portfolio, or we noticed that you deleted your whole portfolio yesterday and you re-uploaded it today, and the same thing the day after. You will do the same thing the day after tomorrow on X, Y, or Z. Tricky conversations, but it's up to us to control that. We can't blame it on agents. So yeah.
No, I mean, a legitimate example of duplicate listings are new builds, and it's one of the reasons new builds tend not to perform on property portals is because legitimately multiple agents have a relationship with the developer. The developer generates the listing data. It gets thrown into whatever CRM or a property manager the agent is using, and we end up with exact duplicates of a number of listings on in a particular development. It adds no value to the buyer because they're just seeing pages and pages of the same listing at the same price. There's nothing to help them choose between listings. And that's a legitimate, there's no gaming of the system involved there. It just doesn't work.
I don't think a portal can do this. I think it has to come from somewhere else, such as maybe an agents association or something like that. The policing cannot be the portal. It's just realistic. It's not realistic that they could go, okay, Bob, you show me the letter that says you can list it. Well, no, but I don't have it. That shouldn't be. That can't be a portal, in my opinion. I think a portal should be able to identify duplicates. But then I've seen portals try all loads of different things. There's one portal that was, what it would do is it would take the listing, the duplicates. So there's like the same development 10 times. It would generate one listing. It would, the person inquiring, the buyer, would fill in the form, and then the 10 agents would get the lead. Can you imagine that from the buyer perspective, getting calls from 10 agents for the same thing? So that's a bad solution to the problem. That on the one hand. I think it also happens, like you said, where the off-plan thing is very prevalent. Even in the resales, the exclusives aren't that common. A lot of those duplicate villas and townhouses and things that you see on portals, they're allowed to advertise it. Who are you to tell me I can't do it? I'm allowed. Tell me I can't. So that on the one side. And where it happens the most at, and this is the fun part, at least not fun, but this is something that I see, is in the high end. And I think I know why it happens. So if you go to the high end and do like sort by price, high to low Marbella, you will see the same mention in Marbella or Zagaleta or somewhere there 10, 15 times almost in any portal, particularly the popular ones. As in, it was a portal that nobody advertises on. You might only see it once because there's only one person advertising. But on a Kyero or any at least those sort of ones, you'll see it 10, 15 times. And the reason that happens is what I call a Hail Mary. Packages for agents tend to be based on round numbers, 25, 50, 100, 200. So I'm an agent with 75 listings. There's not a 75 package on this portal, so I'm paying for 100. I got 25 that I'm paying for that I don't have listings for. And that's where the Hail Marys come in. I'm going to stick 25 top properties, massive villas, just on the off chance I might get a sale. Because if I get a sale, I'm retiring. It's 100, 200 grand commission there. So it's more like happens more often on the high end. You get the agent going, well, I've got 10 more gaps here. I've had a nice notification from Kyero saying, hey, you're not using all your quota that you're paying for, and I'm going to go and find the 10 biggest, fanciest villas in Marbella and stick them on there and see what happens. And then you get it 15 times. So I don't think the duplicate thing, I don't think portal can do it. There are some portals trying to do it. That involves a lot of manual checking, like upload your mandate and we're going to do this check and that check. And normally a marketplace it's a tech company. It's not something that you're going to have 50 people in an office checking paperwork and having conversations with individual agents about, no, your mandate ran out 2 months ago. How do I know you still have it? That can't happen. In my opinion, that can't happen at a portal level. So we can identify it, but we need to work in partnership with agents associations, something, that maybe there's some sort of registration number or something that can then give us the data and say, look, if it doesn't got this number in this marketplace, we're not going to show your ad. So it's you go sort it out with the association or whoever so that you do have it. There's always going to be gaming, meaning there's always going to be agents that have a portfolio that isn't maybe big enough to give enough leads, and they go, I need to survive. This isn't for fun. I need to survive. If I've got this, let's stick all these off plan on there and let's drop 10K off the price so that ours, when they sort by price, ours appears first. Let's change the main picture from the one everybody else is using to the third main picture, and then ours looks like a new listing and we get the thing. Look, these 3 listings we had last week, they went like that immediately. I had 100 leads for them. Do I take it off right away? Or do I get the lead and then say, oh, that one just sold. How about something else? What would you do? And these are the realities of the market. They're not saying that it's right, but whose job is it to police that is a bigger question.
But I think, Alfredo, that you just nailed it with your explanation. There are different there are different type of dupes. For example, I've seen portfolios where agents just have the same secondhand listing with a 500 euros difference on pricing. So that's a dupe that I'm creating myself in order to get more chances of getting a lead for those for that listing specifically. So that's the dupe that I feel as a property portal we should control, which is not the same dupe as the dupe that results as a collaboration between 2 agencies or as a new development being launched to the market. So that's, again, a tricky thing to do, but we definitely, and we are working on that, and we've been trying to work on this throughout the last years, at least. But absolutely, I don't think that bad practices should be allowed, but then it's up to what's a bad practice and what's not a bad practice.
I think one thing that we should point at this stage is that, at least in Spanish law, it's illegal to advertise a property for the wrong price. Okay, that's just false advertising. So you get yourself in a bit of trouble there.
Yeah. Comparing Kyero of 20 years ago, where every agent uploaded their list or created their listings on Kyero manually one by one, to a world now where 95% of our listings are dragged automatically out of the property management system that an agent is using. So that's something that's changed over the years. So we would hope, and we're processing, listings every day. So that would make me hope that most listings have a better chance of being up to date. But again, it's dependent on whether the agent's updating their listings in the software that they're using. Yeah, but if you go back to what a buyer needs to know about a platform, they need to trust that platform is showing realistic, up-to-date information. And the whole exclusive listing thing, the situation that creates is agents don't put the precise location of the listing because they don't want another agent to go and find it, which means that we can't map the location accurately to buyers who are used to, as a first thing, go onto Google Maps and go, what does this look like in Street View? I see the photo of the property. What does it actually look like when I'm standing in the street? They can't do that. That limits the number of buyers. It limits the number of transactions. It limits the trust that a buyer has, not just in Kyero, in the entire industry. And if I could change one thing, I would be able to map properties accurately so that it gives buyers the information they want. I understand why it doesn't happen, but it's limiting the volume in the market. I'm convinced of it.
What would be the one thing you would choose, Eugenio? You could make one change either to how agents work with portals or in the marketplace. What would you change?
Well, this is a tricky one. I would do a lot of things. In fact, that's a roadmap, basically. But I think I would definitely penalize agents who are not delivering a good user experience, but response rate, lack of communication channels available, etc. And I would definitely promote those agents who are doing their homework. Definitely. If I could do one thing, the fact behind this is that it's really difficult. It's really difficult to try and put all of this, ingredients together and say, okay, this is a an agent that's delivering a good user experience, and this is an agent that's not delivering a good user experience. But if I could, abracadabra, I would definitely promote agents providing a good user experience, and I would penalize agents not providing a good user experience. Because to me, it's all about the end user's experience. And in the long run, that's better for us as a portal, and that's better for agents. So, yeah.
I have one question on behalf of the agent community, something I've been wondering for ages, and I kind of know the answer, I think, but this one for you, Martin. Property portals. I've always understood you put your listings on there, it's list by price, it's eBay, it's whatever, right? And you get the lead or you don't get the lead. I find it hard to understand. Can a portal influence my listings over my competitor so that I get more leads? Surely it's just a list by price thing.
That's really interesting. I mean, it might surprise you to know that over 90% of buyers on Kyero don't change the sort order. They use the default sort order. And our default sort order is recommended. And recommended means we choose which properties to show to a buyer. And that's our secret source algorithm. That's part of whole Prime AI. So we are able to promote listings within limits. We can only promote listings when we understand what the listing's about, when it's got a good description, when it has a good number of high quality photos. So we score a listing for quality internally, and we use that quality score as part of the ranking algorithm that is Prime AI. So what an agent can do is make sure the listing quality is good and that it's up to date. We also take when was it listed, when was it last updated, is it available in this language natively, and it didn't need us to auto-translate it. So I would say for an agent, what they've got control of is listing quality and recency, like we like to see that it's been updated, not chopped and changed a lot. And then our internal ranking mechanism can promote or demote that listing in front of 90% of buyers. But it raises a really interesting question. What do the other 10% of buyers do? Those buyers are filtering like crazy. They're going, I want 3 beds, 2 baths, a pool, a garden, sea view. I want a really tight price range. Now, it's almost impossible for us to decide which listings to show, because often that buyer's search will get down to 5 listings and we'll show them all. But the interesting thing about that buyer is, if we were talking about intent on the last episode, these buyers have intent in spades. So for an agent, make sure it's properly described, properly photoed. Make sure the property features are as fully populated as possible. We'll do our best to populate them automatically, to auto-generate languages, but that's the starting point right there. If an agent does their job, we have a much better chance of showing that property to the right buyer at the right time.
So it's on an unfiltered visit. That's when you have a lot of influence in terms of what people see. And the idea is that this is where the AI thing comes in. So now it matches what you think the visitor wants to see with what you have. And there's an element where they can pay extra for that to get a little bit more visibility, right?
That's true. But it's also worth mentioning the way we do this and the way other property portals do the featured property thing. Our featured properties always match the search criteria. So let's say you've paid extra to pin your property to the top of the page. We let you do that. But we won't show it unless it completely matches the search criteria of the buyer. I'm looking for property in the UK. I might be looking for a 3-bed house in Chiswick. And Rightmove will show me something kind of similar nearby for maybe not even the same price, because an agent's paid to feature it there. That's definitely going away. The property portals that are doing that won't be able to do that for much longer because of AI.
On top of what Marty said, which is like the technical and technological response, I would say it's our capacity to influence that is limited. It's all on the technology, and it's all depending on on the key features that the listing has, on what the user is looking forward to get when using filters. So I'm answering this because I get these questions quite oftenly from agents. Hey, I need to solve this property. Can you please help me? Pushing these on to top of search results. No, I can't. I mean, I have a limitation as a human being, and as someone that can influence the portal. I have a limited influence on what search results show to end users. So I guess it's all about what the user is looking forward to get and what the agent has at that point in time. That would be my response, on top of the technical development that's running on the back end that Martin just spoke about.
So no great surprise there. We had quite a lot to say about property portals. You'd hope we would. This is a big episode with a lot of information in it. Let me put you on the spot, Alfredo, and ask for your one takeaway, your one summary. What would you say?
Not all property portals are created equal.
Cool. Thank you. How about you, Eugenio? Have you got one that really sticks in your mind?
Property portals push visibility, agencies push sales processes.
Nice. I think my one takeaway would be a plea to agents: help us do the best job we can do by doing the best job you can do with the property listing. Whew. Thank you, Eugenio. Been great having you along for this episode. As always, thank you, Alfredo. Great to have you sanity check and explain things from the agent's point of view. And that's it for episode 3. We'll see you on episode 4 in SEO.